Man with a hairy mouth like an ALD boss. I was taking my son shopping at the supermarket when I noticed everyone looking up at the sky. He also looked up and saw a series of fighter jets flying in the same direction. A sparkling comet appeared in the sky flying towards the death, thinking that the army would shoot it into dust, so no one felt danger was approaching. But just as Zone entered the supermarket, the phone suddenly rang. Suddenly, he took out his phone to look and saw a warning message from the president. He didn't understand why he was the only one who received it, the other didn't. At this time, his phone rang again. It showed that it was the Ministry of Homeland Security. After the male lead answered the phone, there was a very mechanical sound inside. This was a warning from the president. This was not a drill. He had been secluded to move to an emergency shelter with his wife Allison and son Nathan. John was extremely worried. Hong quickly took Nathan out of the supermarket. On the way home, he saw many military vehicles marching to the west at his wife's house. His neighbor was watching live news about the comet. As soon as it hit the ground, a loud commotion rang out. Zone hurriedly ran out to see and discovered that all the birds in the area were frantically flying toward one place. The world suddenly became extremely quiet, and at the same time there was a shock wave that knocked the robot to the ground. TV reported that it was not a comet, but a meteorite the size of a meteorite football field, but the shockwave it creates can be felt by people 2,400 kilometers away from Tamtran. In other words, the explosion that occurred in Lung Siu Hajong, standing at the tip of Ca Mao, can also be affected by the shockwave. The blow was followed by an image of a giant meteor falling right in the middle of central Florida, causing 7.6 million people to immediately turn into dust. The image, captured by satellite, was a giant column of smoke tens of kilometers high. Under the ground, there was a hole with a diameter of more than 10 kilometers. Everyone was confused and scared. At that moment, the male lead phone rang. Again, the TV had two speaker and everything. All electrical devices with signals read and reread the information of Zon and his whole family. Because they did not receive the notification, they immediately become angry and left. There was no way to explain to these people, so I, along with my wife and children, quickly packed up our things and had just gone out the door when we saw an unusual scene in the sky, like the fire of hell was coming and preparing to burn everything while moving Zon car. When neighbors stopped him, he said that he really didn't know what was going on. He could only go to the location in the message to see if it was true. At this time, a mother ran to beg them to take her daughter. I went with her. I even started causing chaos, causing the atmosphere to become tense. What will be the emotions of humans in an apocalyptic situation? Because in order to protect their family, Zon is forced to be patient. Left 7 hours later, the whole family had arrived at the location that the security department had mentioned. In front of them was a sea of people fighting and pushing each other. They all wanted to get inside the base, but were stopped by soldiers. Male protagonist, get the massage. Thanks to that, we were able to successfully secure a total of 20 super large transport planes, and everyone who could board them was carefully selected by the government for their role in development. In the world after the end of the world, each family can only bring one suitcase. The leftover will be thrown away by the soldier. When Zon was packing his luggage, he discovered that his son insulin was forgotten in the car. He quickly ran out the gate to get Alison. She waited for a long time and still didn't see her husband's come back. She told this to a soldier in the hope that he could help her, but he didn't expect that the other person would call his superiors and tell him that here is a child with diabetes. Allison saw that the situation did not look good and immediately left. As a result, she taken to the command room to drink iced tea and confide in her. No matter how she explained, in the end she was still punished. The officer refused to let her on the plane. The female officer said that even her family members were not chose to rescue. Hearing this, Alison immediately bowed her head and apologized. At the same time, Zon found insulin and turned around. When he returned, his wife was nowhere to be found. There was no other way. He could only board the plane himself first. He texted his family, but there was no signal. The man next to him saw the bag of medicine in Zon's hand and said that my nephew also has a chronic illness and the army will not let such people on the plane. Listen to this. Zon rushed to stop the soldiers from continuing to close the door. He said that he voluntarily got off the plane and they agreed, and at the same time, Alison was taken outside the military base. At the same time, all the soldiers received a notification that block point number 34 had just been broken by the people causing the chaotic situation to go out of control. Hundreds of thousands of people frantically ran into the airport with the desire to board the plane, but before they could get there, the army opened fire and killed the soldiers who was pumping gas for the plane. When he saw that, he immediately shouted loudly that the plane was about to explode and told everyone to quickly leave this place. After running out of the danger zone, a loud explosion rang out. Instead, the explosion also caused many plane to crash. The truck next to him was infected, so all the hard work that went into it went to waste just because of lamb greed and selfishness. Allison was scared to death when she saw the scene. She took Nathan to the family car and left a piece of paper stating that mother and son were going to their grandfather's house. When Zone saw that piece of paper, it also eased some of the anxiety in her heart. First, Allison's took her son to buy medicine first because he needed insulin on the way. She just looked at it, saw a store that had been looted by people. Anyway, she didn't know how she would live or die tomorrow. So Allison went in to stake some loot just in time to find insulin when she heard gunshot. It turned out to be a group of thugs, wanting to steal medicine to stockpile. They are very ferocious. If they meet someone, they will kill them without mercy. Allison could only lead her son to crawl outside, but before she could go far, she was stopped by a black man. Under the supplication of his aunt, decided to spare the lives of the mother and child. Then Allison asked an old couple to hitchhike for a while, at first. Then man refused, as the woman saw them pitiful. Talked about the chose people around them, thinking everything would go smoothly, but unexpectedly the man suddenly stopped the car on the side of the row, pulled Allison to the ground, grabbed her arms, and then gave her a hand to the next military base at the boundary between life and death. The nature of humanity will be revealed most clearly on the other side. Zone was on a truck. After learning he was the chosen one, they immediately rushing in to steal the bracelets. The group of people fought each other, causing the truck to lose control and crash into other vehicles. As a result, they were all thrown out after waking up. The bad guys still haven't given up on stealing Zone bracelet. He had no choice but to take out the hammer and scare him, but unexpectedly he slipped and hit the head of the man behind him and become a murderer. The greedy people, seeing that, immediately panicked and did not dare to approach him. While the drive took him away, Tam arrived at the next military base. He was about to use the bracelet to get inside, but the boy said that they were not his parents. The soldier saw that and immediately pulled them out, locked them up, and then comforted his heart. An hour later, Allison arrived at the barracks and met a kind black man. With his help, she found her son. Mother and son quickly embraced the happiness on the other side of the male lead, entering a small town. Everyone here seemed to have gone to the military base. He turned on the TV and saw that the world outside was very crazy. Everywhere on Earth there were digital riots. I don't know if the dead person has surpassed billion of people. He found the car key in the drawer and left a note that if he could survive, he would definitely return the car to the owner intact. When I arrived at my father-in-law house, I saw him punishing the neighbors. My father-in-law wondered where my daughter was. His son-in-law was fortunate that at that time, Allison called to say that she and her son were outside town, so the two men immediately drive to pick them up. Their expression were not shown in the outside but in their hearts. When Allison saw their car, her spirit increased. The whole family hugged each other happily and drove back. At this time, on TV, there was news that there was an Air Force base located in Greenland, which was still very much alive. There were so many vacant positions that they didn't need to think too much. They immediately set out to go there, but no matter how much he advised his grandfather, he still refused to leave because he couldn't bear to leave the house that housed so many people. The feelings between the late wife and me right now, the whole sky has turned orange-red. There is still time for the male lead family to survive. There are still 7 hours left, but the road ahead is stiff and impassable. Suddenly, a meteorite falling from the sky, destroying many cars. Even helicopter could not escape this tragic fate, knowing that if they continued to stand here, they would receive the same fate. So Zone quickly led the whole family to escape under the bridge until evening. After the meteor shower ended, they continued on their way, but when they arrived at the airport, the plane was taking off and had no other choice. The male protagonist could only drive and stop it from flying. Song immediately went down and scolded Zone. He suddenly cried and begged the man, "Please help my family. Even if I have to kneel down, I will accept it, as long as I see that mother and child are safe. Then what can I do?" It was also possible that Zone's sincerity moved the pilot and decided to let them go with him. The distance from the comet to Earth was only 20 minutes after dawn. A giant meteorite fell from the sky. The sea surface created an extremely majestic scene. The shock wave made the plane unable to fly on the island, so the captain could only make an emergency landing. The landing phase was not as expected, so the plane crashed into a cliff because in order to protect everyone, the captain lost his own life. Before he died, he told Zone to go quickly. They only had 10 minutes left before the largest meteorite engulfed everything. The Earth was in a sea of flames. Fortunately, not far away was a military base built underground. As soon as the family arrived, the warning bell immediately rang loudly, revealing that the super huge meteorite was approaching, slowly falling to the Earth. According to calculations, after impact, only 1 minute and 20 seconds of shockwave will destroy the entire Earth's surface. At this moment of life and death, everyone prays together hoping that a miracle will happen. At this moment, happy memories continuously appeared in Zone mind. After the storm passed, the blue planet became as desolate as hell on Earth. 9 months after the disaster, finally, the door of the hidden bunker was opened. The sun still shines brightly, but the Earth is no longer the same. There are no trees or water sources, only rocks and dust remain. 96 minutes humanity has been destroyed. Those still alive here are all the best people can rebuild the Earth, although it is very difficult and the success rate is very low, but we have the right to hope for a brighter future. This the end of the movie, hello and see you again.